All right, so good afternoon, good morning, good evening. This is, I'll name this segment later, GTG will spit that grease. Sorry, it's been a while. First things first. So you're definitely going to be seeing this in July. I know that I was trying to schedule a stream for either sometime in sometime in June. Life comes at me fast, or comes at you fast in general. So we'll reschedule it. Not sure when yet. You know what I'm saying? Just got a lot of things going on right now. And so we'll reschedule it, we'll figure it out. And that'll be cool. And like I said, I take you guys' temperature, you know, Q&A, whatever. You know what I'm saying? We can talk about some stuff. So that'll be fun. Anywho, so there's that. So like I said, I apologize. I was setting for June, but we're gonna have to push that back. As actually, now I think about it, in June you didn't see, I don't think you saw anything really go up on the channel. And that's for a variety of reasons. Really because I was planning on taking June off anyway. And some of my peoples here, they have other things going on. It's the summer, man, like let people just kind of enjoy themselves. So that falls on me, to be honest with you, because we have stuff in the clip and whatnot. And when it eventually comes out, you're going to be like, didn't that come out? That wasn't that like in February or March? Yeah, always late, never breaking. I'm just living up to my namesake. So that's a thing. In any case, I just wanted to get those kind of disclaimers out there, if you will. And let's talk about some stuff. In particular, I just recorded a video where I kind of talked about everything that's kind of going on, a little bit of Foodie, a little bit of DSP, a little bit of Cobra. I'm not sure if that's going to go out or not. That was really kind of like a test recording that ended up going for like 20-something minutes, because you know how I do. But if it goes out, it goes out. If not, you know, well, there may be an individual video. There'll definitely be one on Foodie, because that whole situation with Bruce, which led to her having to abandon Julia and Salah, which led to the situation with Smokey, I believe his name is, and then her getting kicked out of the apartment. We'll save that. We'll save that. I'll record that next, to be honest with you, because that the see how that woman just let her whole life go to shit is fantastic. I don't understand how any rational person would do that, but that's what happens when you want to flex on the internet to a bunch of faceless people. So it is what it is on that, or mostly faceless people. Anywho, you guys aren't here for that. If you guys have already seen the title, or if it hasn't given me away yet, we're here to talk about Darksydephil suing Detractors, and that really comes on the back of the H3 lawsuit against Denim, Brogan, Katie Tron. Good God, I can't believe how bad that woman hit the wall. Holy shit. Like, I never thought Katie Tron, I mean, I didn't think she was really anything special anyway. And that's kind of the reason why, what is her name? Brittany Venti ended up basically dethroning her later. And if you guys really remember back in those days, there was this chick named, I want to say her name was Nee Coleslaw. She was like the third triumvirate in that trolling thought thing they had on Twitch back in those days, I guess. But she fell off, and then they found out she was into a bunch of whatever. Anyway, so it is what it is, but I didn't know Katie Tron fell off like that. Like, Jesus Christ, like she hit the wall hard. Oh my God. On top of the drug abuse, that's exactly what that is, by the way. That's absolute drug abuse. That's insane. So whatever. I may actually might do a video on that really fast, just because. Just because. Anyway, on the back of that, DSP yet again feels emboldened to go after his detractors, trolls, haters, and critics. Obviously, DSP is dependent on other people. So, depending on how that lawsuit goes, which I'm pretty sure that Denims, Frogan, Katie Tron, and there's another guy too, who just recently got thrown in there. He's number 4. He was on that snark list. And no one knew who he really was. I don't want to call him a loser or nobody. I'm not going to do all that. But no one knew who he was, and now he knows, and he found out by Twitter, so he's kind of like, oh. So it is what it is on that. Hopefully he's not as stupid as the other 3 and start deleting evidence and all that bullshit. But as far as I'm concerned, they're more than likely going to lose. Katie Tron's going to lose just on principle. Frogan's going to definitely she threw the case away on her own, being that she's deleting evidence. And what's her name? Denims is definitely going to end up losing easily. Now, and like I said, I'll talk about that later, because people are talking about entrapment, people saying that they got set up and they didn't. That's not how that even worked. And they're not even, and for some of you who are like, oh, isn't what's his name, Hassan Piker, the primary target? No, that's actually, if you look at how Ethan has set it up, Hassan Piker was never the target at all. And the way I see it, Ethan was trying, I'll save that. We'll put that in its own video, but I'll flush all that out, at least the way I see it. That doesn't mean that it doesn't make me right nor wrong, but I'll just flush it out the way I see it. Any case, DSP thinks that if Ethan wins, DSP thinks he has a case. This is kind of predicated on three things. Just a second. This is kind of predicated on three things. DSP has felt emboldened and or motivated because of, like I said, three separate situations, possibly four. First one was when Duty showed what he was making, whatever month that was, the 5,000 plus or whatever. So DSP never really had an idea. Sorry, let's just go down the line. When Duty showed how much he was making, the second one was, oh man, Duty showing what he makes. The second thing that emboldened him was, oh shit, I can't remember. Okay, kind of had a break in the in the recording there. That was my fault. So I'll pick up where I left off. So I said there was three things, possibly four, that's actually leading to this lawsuit, right? I kind of got into a brain fart a bit there, but you know, I'll pick it up. So I'll pick that up. Okay. So first is when Duty showed how much money he makes, right? The 5,000 plus at that time. If I remember what Duty's exact words were, that was just a slow month. That really set DSP off. The second thing was Ernesto Lopez, also known as Button Check, FGC guy. When he started going over DSP's rants about DSP not having the advantage of basically taking advantage of noobs and scrubs with his pay-to-win characters and releasing tech and all that bullshit. Ernesto had said, you know, he had a hard time finding where DSP's channel was, so he ended up going to a Detractor channel to get it. Well, that's because Ernesto didn't actually do his homework, because DSP is not relevant, not to Ernesto, not to the FGC at large. On top of that, even if Ernesto had found DSP's channel, he would have had to comb through so much bullshit. Hence the reason why people go to Detractor channels than DSPs. It's not just the fact that we already have the system flooded, the search engine, if you will, but DSP's channel is so discombobulated that he wouldn't have been able to find it anyway. On top of that, if DSP didn't tank his channel all those years ago, he may still have some relevance in the search engine, and so on and so forth. You know what I'm saying? Personal accountability is a factor in this equation. So Duty, Ernesto. The third thing is Ethan Klein, currently with the lawsuit against Denims, Frogan, Katie Tron, and whoever that fourth guy is. But then, and this is the fourth one, is really the long-standing problem DSP has had with reactors and restreamers, mainly restreamers, that he's had for a number of years either which way. So this is just the accumulation of what was going to always happen, or what was always going to come to pass regardless. So if anything else comes to me, I'll name it out, but let's go ahead and go over it. So first one, Duty. So when Duty showed how much money he was making off of his content per month, DSP never had a clear amount, or he never had an objective amount that he could point to and say, this is what these people, these leeches, these parasites, these people, these criminals, you know what I'm saying, steal from me. So he never had an actual solidified number, because either at the time most detractors, trolls, haters, and critics weren't monetized, or the ones who were monetized aren't going to put their business out there like that because they're not attention whores. So there you go. So with that, so Duty provided a service to DSP doing so. For whatever reason, whatever either one of them get out of it, it is what it is. So it is what it is. So that right there was the first thing. that's kind of like one of the main catalysts for what's kind of popped this all off. The second thing, yet again, is button check. Or, well, I'm jumping ahead. Let me give this the respect it deserves. Let me give point number one the respect it deserves. So now the DSP knows how much money that one person's making. It gives him, even in his autistic mind, a general idea of what not only other detractors, trolls, haters, and critics could be making based off numbers and views, because that's all DSP cares about, is numbers and views. But it gives DSP an idea of what potentially could be made off of him. And that's what scares DSP more than anything. It's not just what's directly in front of DSP, right? Or what the general landscape looks like. If you take someone who's a paranoid sociopath, right, as DSP is, as well as a narc, he, and even in his limited thinking, don't get me wrong, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not putting him up there in genius status or anything, but even in his limited thinking, that right there is the measuring point of what potentially could be made. You know what I mean? Off of him. So when these other bigger YouTubers come in every once in a while with their little pop shot videos at DSP that pull their 200, 300, 500,000 views, now DSP has an idea, of what that money could make. Because if you guys remember, and you guys might not, there was, at the time that I'm recording, so this was last month, this was in June. I can't remember when in June it was, but someone had basically asked him, you know, hey, as it pertains to ad revenue and, you know, how much does he kind of generate or something along those lines. And DSP admitted that he was going off of like 2016, 2017 numbers. So he's already working with a very outdated premise with outdated calculations. That tells me a lot about DSP. It really does. It really tells me that he's not looking at what he makes in ad revenue anymore because it's non-existent. The reason why that is because most of DSP's catalog, I shudder to think, 70% of DSP's catalog is claimed. For sure. I would say his catalog has been tanked since the Machinima days. Well, post Machinima days. And when he went to Curse, for those of you who remember this, Curse couldn't protect all of his content. They were able to protect some of it, and they were able to give him a larger cut of the ad revenue, but they couldn't cover everything. And that's why DSP was so, you know, desperate to become partner over on Curse, which didn't happen. He was there for 18 months. He eventually gets kicked out for the trolling. You guys know that story. So DSP's catalog has been dead in the water since post Machinima, to be honest. And that's the reason why he cuts everything up and he puts it out the way he does. He thinks that's the reason why you had the throwback channel nonsense, where he was trying to get those old playthroughs cleaned up, and, you know, because he's such a graphics whore, he wanted to get all that stuff cleaned up, and he wanted to do reactions to it because he was hoping he could get it back into the algorithm to take precedence over the stuff that's on his channel that he can no longer monetize. Stuff like that. And it failed miserably, obviously. That's why he's so codependent on streaming. That's why he's so codependent on these DSP trizits, these marathons, and so on and so forth. So that's the situation with that, and that's all linked into point number one. So whatever you may think about Duty flashing his money, or his earnings, I should say, or whatever, one could, if they were willing to, could give grace and say that, hey, that right there has caused the maelstrom of paranoia that DSP has as it pertains to the content that's being made on him, the velocity that it goes out, or the just sheer amount of it that goes out, and how much one person can make. If one person can make that, imagine what 10 people can make. Imagine what 50 people can make. Imagine what 100 people can make. Now, let's go further. Let's go ahead and give that situation with Duty and all that a little bit more credit. Think about what that could do to somebody on another platform. You can get yourself monetized on Twitter, even though, don't ask me how much they make. From what I've heard from people, is not very much. You have to get 20, 30, 50, hundreds of millions of views for that stuff to be something. But either way, you gotta start somewhere, right? Just imagine what that does on Twitter. Imagine what that does on Instagram. Imagine what that does on TikTok. And so on and so forth, right? So in a day and age currently where DSP is out there further than he's ever been, it's fair to say that in 2025, he's out there. DSP, Darksydephil, Phil Burnell, Dark Geppetto has has more exposure on him this year than he's ever had, and he can't profit a lick off of it. And none of it comes back to YouTube. Or if it does, it doesn't come back to him. And that's what I think scares him more than anything. I don't think he's so much as mad at Duty more than he's scared of what that is. Because theoretically, this is me giving Duty, like, let's say we're playing, Duty's playing 4D chess here. Let's say this is Duty saying or advertising, hey, this is what I'm making. You guys could make something. You guys could make something close to this too if you're willing to do this. Am I overthinking that? Possibly. Am I giving too much credit? More than likely, especially if someone who lies on people. But it is what it is. One can make it for what it is. So there's a situation, the first part of that, as it pertains to DSP and Duty and all that. Second thing, Ernesto, button check. Now, the button check thing is actually kind of interesting if you think about it, because you're gonna see. You guys might see the triumvirate that I'm building here, the Gout, the Doubt, and Snout. You guys might see it, but I may have given it all away. What Ernesto so Duty represents YouTube, so to speak, at least in this particular function. Ernesto, or even just social media in general, you could say, but whatever, let's say YouTube. Ernesto represents the FGC and the lack of relevancy, basically, that DSP does not have amongst those people. No one knows where to find DSP's channel if you're part of the FGC because you don't care. You know what I'm saying? They usually just call him DSP. Very few of them name him as Darksydephil. None of them really know him as DSP Gaming. So DSP's own marketing, in air quotes, has already come back to haunt him. And even if Ernesto did go to DSP's channel, he would have to go through that slop, which is his channel, and I can say that because I produce slop. He would have to go through DSP's channel for the slop. Try to find it. Try to find the full context. DSP talks in circles. He would have to go through all that to you know what I'm saying, to get a good grasp of what he's saying. Then he's gonna have to clip it out. He's gonna have to edit into his own shit. That's just too much problems and too much trouble for someone like Ernesto, who's getting out FGC news on the regular. He doesn't have a lot of time for that. I'm not calling Ernesto lazy, because he's not. I'm saying is that he has only so many F's in a day, you know what I'm saying, to be given to dedicate to this bullshit here. So there would be, in that, he's not going to pull anything out of DSP's original content that wasn't clipped. DSP is so adamant that he's being clipped out of context, and he's really not. He's clipped in full context. That's why DSP has all these bloated explanations off of a clip, which is him already saying something. Like, for example, in the current timeline, DSP was shitting on some game, right? He was shitting on it and whatever. Well, a clip of that makes it to Twitter, or X, whatever. Then the developer ends up seeing it, right? And ends up shitting on DSP. But see, then again, that goes back to that GDC thing that I told you guys about. Well, that most of you who were around at that time, you saw it. And what I try to remind you guys of. That also goes back to what I have been telling you, that these devs are aware of Darksydephil in some type of way, shape, or form. It doesn't matter whether he's just terrible at games or he's just the guy who beat it off and didn't wash his hands, let alone wipe his hands off before started playing. He's made his rounds, and for more bad than good, to be honest with you. And because DSP was shitting on this game and the graphics and this, that, and the third, the clip basically explains everything DSP said. DSP goes on Twitter to try to rebuff it and says, did the clip actually say how I compared it to this other game that I really, really like and all this, yada, yada, yada. He tried to basically clean the mess up, or he tried to, you know, clean it all up to make it look good for the timeline. And no one cares, because the clip says it all. End of story. So no one needs to run around and go to you for extra context. No one needs to DM you to figure out what the fuck's up and whatever. What was said was what was said. As it pertains, let's go back to Ernesto. Or button check. He doesn't have time for the silly shit. If he had gone through and watched DSP's raw content, he would have gotten the same context. If he had seen the edited part in the story, it wouldn't have changed anything. And I think anybody who's rational knows that. So, but with DSP saying, hey, I need you to go to my regular content, I need you to go to my channel, don't go to these guys' channels, DSP's trying to build a rapport with him. He thinks, oh, if he watches me, he'll be hit with the pignosis, and then maybe he'll want to actually speak to me, and then I can get on his platform, and then we can actually talk things out. And Ernesto's not going to do that. Ernesto hasn't done interviews with people in quite a while. He has his reasoning for that, but the thing is why would he talk to you when he actually has an opportunity to talk to anybody of relevance or stature? Keep in mind, Ernesto's not trying to associate himself with Darksydephil. Darksydephil said something stupid or maybe slightly intriguing. He saw it on Twitter, and then he was like, okay, let's go over it. There is no more contact that needs to be made outside of that. And if Ernesto wanted to reach out to you, he can, because he knows what your Twitter is. And they call me DSP, so it's not like it's that hard to find you. He just doesn't care to look for you on YouTube. And there's nothing wrong with that, to be honest with you. It really isn't. Because like I said, you're not being misrepresented. So Ernesto and Button Check represents the FGC aspect of it. So we got YouTube covered, we got Ernesto covered. Now let's go to, excuse me, let's go to Ethan Klein, and then Denim, Frogan, and Katie Tron, and that fourth guy, we're not going to even mention him right now. The situation with that represents the streaming aspect. What DSP looks at as the abuse of his content being taken in real time. Keep in mind, DSP has advocated multiple times over the years that, hey, if you don't want to talk to him over here, or if you don't want to abide by his rules or behave or whatever the hell, go to those restreamers and watch them. He's advocated this multiple times. Anybody who's willing to go back and look will be able to make a compilation of that, just like you can make a compilation of anything else that DSP said. I had heard something along the lines that he said something about someone could walk off a bridge or throw themselves off of a bridge or something along those lines, right? It's not the first time he said it. It's not going to be the last. Just because DSP edits it out of his own content because he's a coward doesn't mean that it can't be found. This is no different. DSP had established the alternative market to watch him on his own. Is Dark Dave Mirrors a industry or a market substitute for Darksydephil? No. Dark Dave Mirrors is actually entertaining. Is Raw Phil a market substitute, right? Or alternative to DSP? No, that's actually entertaining over there too. And you can actually talk to people about anything without that somehow impeding upon DSP's ego or his lack of anything, because he doesn't know anything. When you go to a DSP stream, he wants you to talk about him. Period. That's what he thinks streaming is. You come to his stream and you only talk to him about him. Or you're hand holding him through a game. Or you're giving him moral support, which goes back to point number one. Or you're giving him money. That's it. That's not, if you consider that a stream, so be it. If you consider that content, so be it. But amongst basic streamers, that's not content. It's really not. If you go into a stream and you know some of those people or some of these people are chatting it up about multiple things at times, depending on what stream you're in, you should be able to engage with that all you want. As the streamer, if you look over, you see some guys talking about sports while you're playing a game, you should be able to let that slide and keep it pushing if you can't add anything to it. DSP can't do that because there's very few people on the stream already. There's even less people in the chat, and if it isn't about him, then he's getting freaked out because he thinks it's gonna start breeding trolls. End of story. The reason why DSP has no viewership or engagement, not just on his streams but on his content, his videos, if you will, you want to call it content, is because of him. He's a control junkie who needs to micromanage and sift through, or he needs to vet every comment that comes about. And you see it on Kick too. I can't remember what it was. It was like the first couple weeks, maybe even the first couple months that was on Kick. He already had, what, a couple of thousand people already blocked or banned? That's insane. That's literally insane. Then again, if you're paying attention to that pirate software situation, he beat DSP by 3. I think he had banned 3 times as many people over the whole World of Warcraft thing. The current drama with pirate software is the, what is that? Like save video games initiative or whatever. that petition that's going on. And I'm surprised that some people are surprised that Pirate Software would not support that. Jason has no reason to support that. Not just the fact that he may never get his own game done, but he's an industry puppet. Of course he's going to tote the line. The game industry doesn't want you to own anything. They want you to be what DSP is. Consume, 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 and own nothing. It doesn't matter that you're going to bitch and complain. You can do that if you want. But when the new shiny thing comes out, what are you going to do again? Consume, consume, consume. If you don't own anything, then who gives a shit? That's the reason why DSP's quote-unquote business archetype, at least for the industry, kind of works. Let him pick up a game, get 20 hours out of it, says it sucks, and then he leaves. Who gives a shit? Even if it's predicated on microtransactions and this, that, and the third, it doesn't really matter. They got their initial money out of him. The people who watch him are either going to be, or who are dense anyway. Those who end up liking it will buy it and continue to play it. And those who don't like it because he said it or because they just didn't like it, they'll move on. So it doesn't matter. And then just to show you how much of a fucking sucker DSP is, look at Street Fighter 6. Look no further than Street Fighter 6. Whenever a character comes out that he can relate to or he thinks is going to be overpowered, he's going to just run to. He'll buy that season and he'll just run to it. This season coming up, it's going to be Sagat, right? When he eventually comes out. The moment he comes out, DSP is going to run to it because he's going to want his day one, maybe even week one wins, right? Until people either figure him out or more people get their hands on the character, and then DSP is going to quit again. End of story. He is the constant and reliable consumer. That's what the game industry wants. They want, you know what I'm saying? And I can say this because I play Call of Duty, for example, and all that shit is fucking digital fluff. You don't own any of that shit. From your microtransactions to your blueprint, you don't own any of it. It doesn't exist. And then if you look at what Nintendo did as it pertains to, you know, when you buy the game, like you buy the physical game and there is no physical game, there's just a cartridge, which you have to put into your Switch and then you have to download the game to it and yada, yada, yada. Yet again, it's like the industry is going out their way to make sure you have nothing of physical ownership anymore. That's the way it's all going. So they can cut these games off the moment they fail and, oh well, sorry, the game doesn't exist anymore. Buy a new product that's coming out soon. And DSP is no different. DSP is literally a walking microtransaction at this point, if you guys really think about it. He's literally a microtransaction. He is a shitty, poor thought out, poor executed game, or poorly executed game that has a shitload of microtransactions. And that right there is supposed to keep you engaged. You think of the fucking think of the streak. It's not called a streak, sorry. Think of the stream goals. Think of the payoff that comes after that. Every 10 stream goals that are made, or $1,500. Do the math. You sit there and get a DSP tries it. For every 100 goals that are hit, you guys get a marathon where he gives you the illusion that you have some real choice and you don't. It's all fluff. None of that means anything. DSP trying food, which is usually slop in itself, doesn't do him any favors and it doesn't do you any favors. And then what he does is marathon later at 100, what? You're going to see some fucking broken down, drunk old man get himself even further drunk and then play a shitload of games that you guys may or may not have voted on, that you guys may or may not have really wanted, just so he can say that it sucks, and then he shows up the next day with a hangover? It's all empty. Like, there's really no value there when you think about it. So no one should be surprised that Pirate Software went about it the way he did, to be honest with you. And I saw, at least, and I'll move on, I saw when Charlie, or Moist Critical, tried to get into a conversation with him and talk sense to him. I don't know why Charlie did that, because didn't that therapist over there on Twitch, I don't know if his name is Dr. K or whatever, he actually is a pretty interesting guy in himself, because he was talking to a streamer or something a few years ago or whatever, and because you're not theoretically supposed to be given therapy, that's why he doesn't call it that. But before that got changed up, he was talking to some streamer or something who was depressed, or they were going through it. They had a conversation or whatever. I think it was streamed, probably taken down now, but it was streamed. And the guy, unfortunately, the streamer, a couple months later ended up killing themselves or whatever. I'm not blaming it on this doctor for that or anything, but it is interesting that the doctor did get some type of ramification from that, like something about his license or whatever, but he did get it back. So keep that in mind. So, but yeah, go ahead, if you really care about that shit, look into that and look into that backstory. That's kind of interesting. But anyway, I don't know what Moist Critical thought he was going to pull out of that, but Pirate Software doesn't give a fuck about you, Moist Critical. He don't respect you. He don't do any of that shit. So I don't know why you even bothered. You should have just made your video on him and just kept it pushing. In any case, so there's that situation. Speaking of Moist Critical, let's jump to the Smash community briefly. You guys see what happened to Mango? Fucking A, bro. That's wild. The Smash community is going through it. We ain't sat there and lost Hex. RIP to him. Then fucking what's that guy's name? Zero put out an interview recently where he ended up dropping a friend of his off to Jason's house, or Mewtwo King. And their mutual friend was like, hey, why don't you come upstairs, talk to Jason? You know, I know you guys had that falling out over that thing, but maybe you guys could, you know, rebuild the relationship or whatever. Zero was like, nah, I'm not, you know, I don't want to bother him. There's, you know, I'm kind of, no worries. I don't want to really get into that. Come on, man. Just, you know, he hasn't seen you in a number of years. It'd be good to see him. They go, if I remember this shit to be fact, they go upstairs to dude's apartment. Jason opens the door and he looks, he sees his friend and he sees Zero and he's like, I can't talk to you. And he turns his head to the other guy, to the mutual friend. And he says, I can't talk to him or I'm going to lose my sponsorship. And the mutual friend's like, oh shit, this is fucking awkward as hell. And Zero's like, yo, no problem, man. I'm out, you know, no problem. I'm not trying to, you know, hurt anybody or anything like that. So he leaves, and I guess his friend calls him later and he says, man, I'm really sorry about that. And he's like, yo, it's no problem. So you had that situation that happened and whatnot. There's like an interview about that recently that came out. You have what else? Leffen decided to come out of his fucking hidey hole, and now he's okay with going to tournaments now that his main op is dead, meaning Hex. So now Leffen's feeling safe coming outside, but now everybody clowns him for being a pussy and a bitch because he ain't sat there and cowered the way he did. And now you have fucking Mango, who is at an event held by Ludwig. Held by Ludwig, which is fucking Hassan Piker's main fucking ball licker and whatnot, a ball washer. They have an event where it was supposed to be like it's just an event that he held, and it had drinking and it had a bunch of games and a bunch of prominent streamers went and so on and so forth. They invited Mango, knowing damn well that dude has had a drinking. He has a drinking problem. He's had a drinking problem. You invited this guy over. People just start shoving, you know, drinks to him and whatever. He gets himself sloppy drunk and he's going around doing just obviously fucked up shit. Or, you know what I'm saying? And dude ends up getting fucking hey, man. Mango ends up getting dropped from his team, right? Which is wild because he's been on that team for damn near a decade. Got dropped from his team. Then he gets dropped from then he gets banned from Twitch, which everybody should have expected that because it was on Twitch when it happened. So of course he was going to catch a ban. Hell, if it didn't happen on Twitch, I think he still would have got a ban. Ludwig decides to ban him from all of his tournaments and everything, but then that gets even more interesting because Ludwig doesn't even want to do any more Smash tournaments anymore because of that situation with Nintendo, because they don't have a good relationship and he can't close certain deals with a license or whatever. And this has been going on for a while or something along those lines. But what makes it even more ironic is if it wasn't for Ludwig and fucking Moist Critical and their part that they played in tanking Panda Global, then maybe they wouldn't be in the situation that they're in. On top of the fact that neither one of them seemed to want to speak out against all those pedophiles and groomers and everything that's over there in that Smash Melee community anyway. But that's a whole other story for another day. So anyway, so they basically set the circumstances up for Mango to get himself fucked up, and now Mango ain't lost everything. And I can't remember what team he was part of. It wasn't Evil Genius. Maybe it was Complexity. Is who Mango was with. I can't remember now, but his team dropped him, which is crazy because a lot of people thought, oh, maybe he just gets suspended for like 6 months. His Twitch ban is probably, I wouldn't think it'd be that long, but who knows? And they just dropped him all together. And so now people are talking about cancel culture, this, that, and third. Here's my bit on that real fast, and then let's move back on. The situation with that is twofold. Mango's is a grown-ass man, and he has a problem, and he's spent the better part of a decade not addressing it. Ludwig, who says he's a good friend of Mango's, he knows that he had a drinking problem. And they gave him a breathalyzer twice, and he was well over a fucking safety limit. So the fact that fucking Mango wasn't passed the fuck out, unconscious, fucking kills me. That's wild that he was running around with doing that shit. But his tolerance is so damn high. But so it's twofold. Both of them hold a level of responsibility in that. Mango's his own man. If there was drinking involved, he should have been like, yo, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? Because I can't tell him to sit there and take a drink and then make that it, because he can't do that. So that's just not a thing for him. But then again, then Ludwig shouldn't have put no drinks in front of him anyway. Shouldn't even put him in that situation. You knew he had a problem. So it is what it is. So a lot of people are looking at it now that Ludwig may have set him up. I don't think it's all that. I think Ludwig is a fucking idiot and a snake who threw his friend under the bus. And I think Mango himself needed to take responsibility of his situation. He should have just not gone. End of story. Look at everything you lost. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. Anyway, so that's just some of the nonsense that's going on in that factor. So let's jump back to where we were at. So we were talking about, let's see, point number 2, as it pertains to button check and DSP's reasoning for wanting to sue. And oh no, actually we were on number 3. Sorry, we were on Ethan Klein with him talking about suing Denims, Frogan, Katie'Tron, and DSP and the whole streaming aspect. Okay, so, and I think I was talking about how these guys weren't market substitutes. Those guys are not market substitutes. DSP literally started the market, if you will, and he basically allowed it to, not only did he start it, he set down the groundwork for it, but he let it grow. And he never did anything to change his own behavior, which continued to fuel it. Now, here's the reality, ladies and gentlemen. If, for whatever reason, restreamers were taken off of YouTube, they would just go to Twitch, they would go to Kick, they would go to Rumble, they'll go to any other streaming site, and people will follow. End of story. On top of that, if none of that works, they'll just stream it on Twitter, or they'll stream it on Instagram, or they'll stream it through Discord. No matter what, there'll always be somewhere else for you to go. DSP can't stop any of that. If DSP has been under the idea, the delusion, to be honest with you, that if he could get rid of each and every detractor, troll, hater, and critic, everybody would be just forced to watch him, which isn't true. People will just stop watching. They'll just fade out. Now, theoretically, the latter is what DSP wants. He would rather that people would just fade. If you don't like them, just fade out. The reality is, it is, in some ways, detractors, trolls, haters, and critics that keep him alive and keep him relevant. It's his own fault that he can't roll with the punches or he can't capitalize. That falls strictly and utterly on him. You know what I'm saying? Like, at the end of the day, the fact that you can't prosper off of yourself is nobody else's fault but your own. And the seeds that laid bare to all of this happened years and years and years ago. So, I mean, I don't know really what else there is to say. Like, he did it to himself. And he did a fantastic job of it. So, there's that. The fourth one was his longstanding issues with restreamers. It's Tevin's fault and all these other guys. Yet again, it's a transformative work. He's never going to be able to get, more than likely, a court's not going to get that to pass. Why would they? It's criticism. It's transformative. It is what it is. Everybody who's in this particular marketplace, so to speak, know where the original is. I don't, like I said, I can't think of a detractor, troll, hater, or critic who has ever said, hey, don't watch DSP, watch me. Hey, don't support DSP, support me. I haven't heard that. Now, don't be wrong, I'm not everywhere. Nobody is. But I haven't heard that. And if that is a thing, then, you know, whatever happens, I guess, on that. But one person doesn't speak for an entire community, obviously. So if some people did do it and they get weaved out, they get weaved out. End of story. So there's a situation with that. He's not going to win. He's not. And all those people will just, if they decide not to fight it, they'll just pick up and leave. So it is what it is. Have you guys not been paying attention to what was going on in the low tier GOT community? Well, now I think about it, the LTG community is going through it right now. There's channels getting taken down left and right. I don't have the full story on that, but there's a bunch of channels that are just going through it. So, you know, I mean, any DSP detractor can tell you what that's like. So, hopefully it works out for those guys. But look at over there with is it IMO or MO 342 and whatnot. Look at, you know what I'm saying? Look at all the nonsense he went through. You know what I'm saying? He earned that 121,000. I don't know. I wasn't pocket watching him, but you know what I'm saying? That 100,000 plus that he made. He earned that shit. He earned that shit times 3. He should have, I mean, you know what I'm saying? He was definitely deserving of $500,000. Fucking A, bro. Not just the fact that it made Dale incredibly pissed off, and it's not like any of that money would have gone to child support for Dale anyway, so whatever. But the point being is that, like, you know, 342 worked his ass off for that shit. He went from platform to platform to platform, getting channels, you know, unbanned, then they got rebanned again, and then unbanned, and he worked his ass off to bring people in not a market substitute, but an alternative for those who are already banned anyway. You know what I'm saying? And that goes back to the situation with DSP. Low tier GOT's probably one of my best examples. The people that DSP is trying to say, those are my views, that should be my money, those people would have never given him money anyway. And DSP would have never given those guys freedom of speech to talk in the chat anyway. So he thinks that a bunch of mindless drones are going to really go over there and just watch him and not be able to participate with the comment section or the chat. Like, not mindless drones, but people are not going to be able to go over there and not be able to talk in the chat. You think they're just going to sit there and deal with that shit? No, fuck that. That's just not how that works. It's just not how that works. And more importantly, excuse me, as it pertains to all of this, as it pertains to DSP's idea that, that if he can get all this to go through, if he can show all of his losses from machinima, right? Being that, hey, these are the people who caused me all this strife and all this heartache and this loss of income. Going back to 2015, whatever. This is the reason why, you know, I've been harassed for almost a decade. This is what he's going to try to say. This is the reason why I deserve this judgment. This is the reason why I'm suing these people and you should award me the win. The reality is, if they can get machinima to do it, but someone has to have those files somewhere. The reality is that detractors, trolls, haters, and critics didn't fuck DSP up. DSP, Darksydephil, Phil Burnell, Darksydephil fucked himself up. He was in a decline long before a detractor was even a detractor. You can't blame This Is How You Don't Play. You can't blame Evil AJ. You can't blame any of the old heads who came before us, or the OGs, or legacy detractors, whatever you want to call them. You can't blame any of those guys for his downfall because DSP's views were already tanking. They were already dropping. You know what I mean? And keep in mind, there are estimates out there of, well, we know for sure that DSP was making at least 250,000 back in his early days. I'm hearing, though, people making some pretty good calculations and assessments that DSP may have made $3 or $4 million at this particular point. Initially, I wasn't looking at it like that, but it's possible. Excuse me. Especially with all of the behind the scenes money that's being donated to him. If you guys don't know my direct reference, Almighty Tevin, years ago, this is when DSP was still using Streamlabs. DSP had a leaderboard, everybody does, where you could see who your top donator is. Well, there was a guy on that leaderboard who never showed up or at least that particular donation, which was about $1,100, I think, a little more, a little less. That donation was never given on a stream. That guy sent that money through the Streamlab link, basically behind the scenes. DSP didn't know that it would still pop up if it went through Streamlabs. And the moment Tevin pointed out, DSP got rid of that. He got rid of that list, or that section with that ranking. Which means that was probably going on for a hot minute. That had been going on for a little while. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're not doing anything wrong, if you're not trying to deceive people, if you're not trying to lie to people, you don't need to hide shit. Which leads to, if he actually does decide to sue, I'll do probably a separate video on that. But amongst all of his claims and all of his evidence or whatever, and whoever it is he decides to sue, that lawyer is going to want discovery. They're going to want to prove, they're going to be like, hey, you're going to need to prove to us that you've had this drastic drop in income, and we want all the files, or we want all the documents. So any documents from Twitch, any documents from Curse, any documents from Machinima, any documents from Teespring, wherever. We want all that. We want all of that. And DSP's lawyers are gonna DSP and his lawyers are gonna have to cough that up. You don't just get to go into court, make claims, and not have any proof behind it. And all of the smoke and mirrors that DSP is gonna throw out there, this little bit here, the little bit there, like what you guys saw in the bankruptcy. Nah, that's not gonna fly in court. He's gonna have to produce some real evidence. And in doing so, whatever detractor he decides to sue, they're gonna have the rights to discovery. And so now DSP is gonna have to open up them hips, basically, and he's gonna have to open up them books. He's gonna have to open up those ledgers. And we're gonna get to see what's what. Or at least that detractor in particular will. I don't know if that shit will be public. For public consumption. But that detractor and his lawyer will. And then they're gonna find out what's what. They're gonna find out how much money's really being brought in, what's it really going to, how much is really going to. If DSP thought that fucking situation with Bank of America was bad, oh boy. He's got a whole fun house of stuff waiting for him if he really wants to sue. Damn, DSP, have you not been paying attention to the law too? You've not been paying attention to the commentator community? You've not been paying attention to all these lol suits that go on around here and shit? That's like standard procedure. So there you go. And then you're broke. Where are you going to even come up with the money? Oh, that's right. You said during the Super Crazy arc that if a detractor sued you, the internet will fund your lawsuit. How are they going to fund your lawsuit, Phil, when they have to fund your day-to-day? Can't do both. They can't do both. You think a big donator, one of these dents, are just going to fork over a couple $100,000 and it's just supposed to happen? Nah, B. That's not how that's going to work at all. You're going to have to make some choices. You guys are going to have to tighten your belts if Kat can still reach around hers. And you guys are going to have to work some shit out. And Phil, unlike your tax, the guy who prepares your taxes, your CPA, your tax attorney, I don't even know if you know what you're talking about when it comes to all that. It's not going to be that little $100 a month for an entire year, and then you have to pay them again when they do your taxes for you the following year. A lawyer is not going to play that game. They're not going to play that game at all. So you're going to have to figure out what that situation is, especially if you lose. If you lose, you may very well have to not only pay court fees, which you'll probably have to pay anyway, but if you have to pay that detractor's lawyer's fees on top of your own, on top if they decide to take you back to court for civil, if they choose to do so, and I don't even want to get into the whole trademarking and all that, being that you don't own any of that, as far as I know. So, or at least, I don't know if you own any of that, because it would be Darksydephil and DSP Gaming, and I don't know if you own any of those, to be honest. You might own one, but I don't know if you own both. So there's that. So the reality is, as it pertains to DSP suing, it's gonna go nowhere. Even if Ethan wins, DSP still don't, because he doesn't have the money that Ethan does. He doesn't have the lawyers, right? And then more importantly, he just doesn't have the justification that he believes he does. He's so low on the totem pole that it doesn't even matter. You know what I mean? Even people with more money than DSP, which, let's use Amber Lynn Reed, for example. Even she gives out fucking bullshit threats about going after her haters or whatever. She doesn't even do it. The last thing she did big against a hater was she paid for old Lordy's Jordy's, I'm pretty sure she paid for his information, to be honest. Which is kind of crazy, to be honest with you, but whatever. She decided to pay for that. And she's been taking shit about that ever since. And it's alleged, though I can't prove this, she tried to go after Karina Kaboom and whatnot. Now, Karina, if you follow Karina Kaboom, her face is out there, like especially in some of her early videos or whatever. But she tried to go after her too, and I don't know what happened with that. But Karina's smart, so more than likely that failed. And obviously, she wasn't going to go after Michael B. Petty because she's scared of him, as she should be. She's contacted Zachary Michael a bunch of times over the years, and I don't know why he put up with her, but he did. You know, that it doesn't work like that. It really don't. If you're the Monograph, Nick Rekieta thing was a completely different story. Nick, for whatever reason, underestimated Monograph, and Monograph got him. Even though it was only a couple $100, maybe a couple thousand. It was nothing. But yet again, you shouldn't dare people to do shit, because sooner than later, someone's gonna, you keep, you know, running around here knocking on doors, someone's gonna eventually answer you. So sorry about that. So yeah, so that's my thoughts on this lolsuit bullshit that DSP is trying to pull. Ethan has far more ground, I think, to go after and do what he's doing. And yet again, I think it's part of a much larger plan. But I'll probably do a separate video on that, and we can we'll speak about that. We'll see what's what. As it pertains to DSP, though, you know, it's not even worthwhile. I don't think. Even if he did take duty to court, like, you know what I'm saying, like, DSP would be wasting what little resources that he has. And truth be told, he's just going to martyr. He's just going to give duty martyrdom. And that's pretty much it. So it is what it is. So if DSP didn't learn from when he got Tevin and those other fellas deplatformed off of Twitch all those years ago, which that's going to eventually come out sooner than later, it's just not worth doing. It's just really not. Like, DSP's just wasting his own time and his own resources, what little he has, going after people. It's just it's a power fantasy that DSP has in his head that if he and truth be told, actually, it's a power fantasy that DSP just has in his head. It's more than likely not going to go anywhere. But more importantly than that, ladies and gentlemen, I'll try to close with this. DSP is not doing this for money. He tells you that and whatnot, but just like with Foodie Beauty, rule number 1 is DSP lies about everything. It's not just about money. It's about validation. That's really what this comes down to. DSP wanting to sue his detractors and praise the God that he can win is not really about money. It's about validation. It is confirmation that he's not the one who failed, that it was never really his fault. It was the detractors, trolls, haters, and critics. They were the ones who did it. They were the ones who brought him so low. They're the ones who tore up his situation with Machinima, even though there's plenty of evidence out there that DSP did it to himself. It's proof that it's validation and proof that he did nothing wrong and did everything correct when he was on Curse, even though obviously that's not the case either. Same thing with Twitch, same thing with Streamlabs and Stream Elements, same thing with YouTube in general. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't his fault. It was always the detractors, trolls, haters, and critics. They screwed him up from day one. He's been trying to fight the good fight, and they won't stop, and he's not willing to stop, so he just keeps enduring it. And the reality is that he did it himself. You know what I'm saying? And any good lawyer who has the time, who's willing to put in the research, they'll discover that. Now, how will they present that is a whole nother story in itself. But as it pertains to gathering the evidence for it, if you're willing to look, you'll be able to find it, to be honest. And that's really what it comes down to. DSP just wants the validation that he was never the failure that people made him out to be. It was always someone else's fault. It wasn't him. And that's why DSP likes to throw this bullshit out there where it's like, oh, it was just an act. It was a gimmick. People took me too seriously. This, that, and the third. You know, it was all supposed to be a joke. It was all supposed to be for fun and games. But then when you bring up this is how you don't play, well, I did take it too seriously, but I did because this is how I make my money, and I didn't want people to look at this is how you don't play and thinks it would completely invalidate my playthrough, and no one would watch. And that's not a reason, nor is it an excuse. It's just not. It's just not an excuse. It really isn't. So, and truth be told, by him giving this is how you don't play, for example, all that light, all that attention, he made it into what it is. He did more of the heavy lifting than the poor gameplay that was used as really a parody, if you will, of the idiot in question. He did it all himself. So he's going to have a really hard time he'll never be validated for that. Ever. He'll never be validated. A lawsuit's not going to do it. Whether he wins or loses, he'll never find the validation out of that he thinks is going to be made available if he wins. It's just the reality of it. And the fact that he's still chasing that, the fact that he feels that there's value in even bothering trying to chase after that, is, I think, probably one of the more pathetic and probably one of the more sadder aspects of it, to be honest with you. He's made mistakes on YouTube since day one, and it's been documented. And, excuse me, every once in a while, he'll sit there and give you this sob story about, you know, my depression, my alcoholism, I have anger problems, you know, I took things too seriously, I should have just let it go, but I couldn't because my ego, and so on and so forth. The reality is, he's a small little man who was desperate to hold on to whatever little relevancy that he had. And truth be told, he threw it away. He threw his relevancy away if he was ever really relevant. He threw friendships away. He threw away other relationships. He threw all that shit away in the pursuit of, in the belief, in the delusion that he was more than what he really was. And it just doesn't go any further than that. Now, whether DSP's actual upbringing in IRL is what's caused all of this, or his upbringing on the internet, I can't really tell you. I think I'd make a good video though on what that shift is. Either which way, at the end of the day, it still falls on him. People can't hurt you any more than you let them. And if you keep calling people out and say, do your worst, well, guess what? Then people are going to do it. If you're willing to have people push that envelope, there's always going to be someone who's willing to push that envelope. End of story. You can't sit there and say, hey, come find me, and then someone finds your address. Like, you shouldn't have. Why would any rational person say that? And that's not internet culture. This is IRL. You're literally stepping off of internet culture in the IRL when you make challenges to people like that. Oh, these people can't hurt me. They can't hurt my life. They can't hurt my success, but let them try if they want to. You're challenging people to do something. And DSP has done that. I couldn't even tell you how many times he's done that over the years. And each and every time it blows up in his damn face. Just like with Foodie Beauty. You know, like quick detour, and then let's close up shop. Foodie, really, her and DSP are so much alike. Well, lolcows in general, honestly. But her and DSP are so much alike, it's almost insane, to be honest with you. She's another one who she challenged people to come get her. She challenged people to get her deported. She challenged people to notify the authorities about how much of a bad person she is. And they did it. That's exactly what they did. And trust me, FFG, French Fry Girl, just in case you guys don't know, if I had to guess, she's on the hunt to find out where that cat Smokey is. And if she finds out where it's at, she's gonna adopt that cat and give it to someone else. Because why not? She already has man, if my fucking lore is good on this. She already has BBJ, so why not go for a second one to make the pair? And that's what leads people to believe that that Foodie basically let Smokey go on the street, because that was the only way she could guarantee that Frenchie would never be able to get her hands on. And I know that sounds really sick, because it is really sick, but that's how her mind works. And if you want me to go ahead and coincide that with something DSP did, look at what DSP did with his pet pedophile, Derek. He was fighting tooth and nail. Sorry, he was fighting tooth and nail, or hoof and tusk, if you will, to try to keep Derek. He was trying his hardest to get Josh Moon in the Kino Casino to give Derek a pass, and he couldn't do it. But he tried. He tried for the better part of 20 minutes. Josh even commented on that later on when he said that he was really surprised on how much he was willing to fight for Derek, given, you know, that guy's penchant to do what he does. He was really surprised DSP was willing to fight for that. If that's the case, and why was that, by the way? Just so DSP couldn't pass his detractors, trolls, haters, and critics a win. Foodie is the exact same way. She will do whatever she can to keep they call them reactors over there, or haters, whatever, to keep them from getting a win. So yeah, I think she could have abandoned that cat on the street just so FFG couldn't get her hands on it, because FFG is probably one of the closest reactors to her in Canada. So yeah, I honestly think that. And if you're keeping up with the current day and age, the parking lot that Foodie's been hiding out in, and, you know, basically stuffing her face and doing all this bullshit with her vlogs or her members only streams, they already figured out where that parking lot's at. Matter of fact, someone else went the extra step to find the other parking lot that she might be at. They've got her locked down. On top of the fact that she got herself evicted from that her place or wherever it was she was at for like a week, and she got evicted out of that shit. So all I'm saying is that, you know, you keep knocking long enough, people are gonna come get you, and you can't go to court and try to say this, and this, and there's video evidence where you're out there smug, acting like an asshole. I'm not saying what these people did to Foodie was right or wrong. I'm not here to say any of that. And what I am saying is, if you know, and she does know, just like DSP knows, that these people are highly motivated, why would you provoke them into that? Why would you call that out? And then Foodie's trying to sit there and say doxing is illegal. You've doxed people. So go ahead and try to pull that bullshit in court and see what happens, when there's plenty of evidence out there of you doxing people. Foodie just recently, within the last week or two, while she was at her new place before she got kicked out or evicted, she was asking for the docs of a few reactors. So she's already out here asking for people's doxes. So it is what it is. Anyway, as it pertains to sorry for that derail, but as it pertains to DSP and the lawsuit, I don't think anything's going to come out of it. He'll keep threatening it because he hopes the threat's going to be enough. He'll never go through with it because there'll never be enough money that he can ever obtain to actually do so. And if he himself gets sued, he will freak the fuck out and probably have a heart attack on stream. But outside of that, he's not going after anybody. He's not going after Duty. He's not going after anybody, to be honest. Whether Ethan wins or not, DSP is not going to do shit. And, you know, that's just, it is what it is. It doesn't go any further than that. Anywho, if something comes up, I'll let you know, but I think I've pretty much laid it as long as this was. I think I've laid it out as far as I want to go with it. That's just the reality of the situation. I had a lot to talk about, and I still have a lot to talk about. I'll make sure that excuse me. I'll make sure that there'll be timestamps down in the description so you guys can kind of bounce around a little bit, because I was kind of all over the place with this. But like I said, a lot to talk about, and take some of it as like a preview of what's coming up next. And after I get some of that out of my system, I can actually get into some videos and whatnot, because there's a lot to holy shit, there's a lot to go over. In any case, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening in. I very much appreciate it. I'll catch you guys for the next one of these, you know, whenever that happens. You know what I'm saying? Rather soon. But this has been, I'll name this segment later, GTG Spits That Grease. Take care of yourselves, people. Like I said, take care of yourselves. And enjoy your summer. to be honest with you, because like outside of the usual begging that DSP's doing, he's not doing much anything else as far as I see. So try to enjoy your summer a bit. You know what I'm saying? While you're out there, have a good time, spend time with your friends, family, whatever the case may be, and have a good time and shit. But I will say that with the economy going the way it's going, and with with it only basically boiling down to between 2 and 4 people that are giving up all this money, and most of those people are probably on stock accounts. The real desperation will happen eventually. Just give it time. Just give it time. But in any case, take care of yourselves, people, and I'll catch you guys for the next one. Later, people.